Hi, my name is Forrest Stewart, and this is my BI in Practice presentation for CIS 570 on Travelocity.com. Okay, so at a glance, Travelocity.com is the first of what we would call online travel agencies, as it was the first website that really kind of enabled customers to reserve and book and then purchase airline tickets specifically without the help of a travel agent. It was created in 1995 through a venture that occurred between Worldview Systems Corporation and Sabre Holdings. And Sabre is notable because they've provided this kind of this electronic reservation system for airlines since the 1970s. So their involvement in this project ends up being of kind of enormous importance. Travelocity is currently owned not by Sabre but by Expedia Group in Dallas, Texas. Okay, so a little bit more about the business that Travelocity.com is in. It's essentially a consumer-facing front end, a brand, a website, a marketing presence for Sabre's GDS, or Global Distribution System. And again, Sabre is the company that provides sort of on the electronic airfare booking, and again has been in that business since the 1970s. So today, outside of airfare, Travelocity also enables consumers to book hotel rooms, rental cars, cruises, and packaged vacations, again by kind of going to Travelocity.com and searching for trips that they're looking for. Travelocity was the first OTA, and again that occurred in the mid to late 90s. But since then, that OTA space has become increasingly competitive, starting in the late 90s and early 2000s when Orbitz and Priceline kind of came onto the stage, and now Kayak, Booking.com, and even TripAdvisor are competitors to Travelocity. The importance of that will become evident in a moment. All right, so specific to BI use at Travelocity.com, it's important to note that since it's been around since the mid-90s, Travelocity has really an enormous amount of unstructured data from multiple decades of electronic exchanges that are sourced from email or call center notes, and then now kind of through social media. So really, Travelocity, again, is like roughly 25 years old. They have a huge first mover advantage when it comes to gathering data, and we're a little bit ahead of their time in that regard. So understanding that they had all of this kind of unstructured data, in 2007, Travelocity started using text analytics software to mine opinions and trends and other areas for improvement from the corpora of that unstructured data. And the idea was that they would then couple that with structured data from their existing data warehouse that included sales and support information to add this sort of voice of the customer dimension to transactions. And that would then enable Travelocity to better understand customer sentiment during the sales and support phases, right? So they're using, or the idea was that they were going to use that unstructured data in conjunction with structured data to really kind of have this 360-degree view of the customer. So not just sort of their operational understanding of how a customer entered their site and then ran through a purchase funnel, but also how they felt at various steps along the way. So when Expedia purchased Travelocity, it acquired all of this data and has since then used that data and Travelocity's BI efforts to support natural language search on many of the travel platforms that Expedia owns. And so that feature really then enables customers to just state their intent rather than fidget with a bunch of drop-down boxes and select boxes and forms. So they can, at this point, just type flights from Los Angeles to Denver at Christmas or customer service, and Expedia and Travelocity's search results will sort of anticipate their needs and give them what they're looking for. Again, that's based on this decades-old understanding of unstructured data that Travelocity had sort of undertaken. So that technology, that sort of application of BI, then paves the way for a couple of different things. First, better basket optimization, and then the ability to kind of provide results to voice-based searches for travel that might come through virtual assistants like Siri or Alexa. All right, so how did they do this, or what tools did they use? Travelocity uses or used several technologies from a host of vendors, and sort of I would call the top 3 partners in the BI space included the players on the screen. So first and foremost, Intensity provided the text analytics software that enabled Travelocity to sort of mine those facts and relationships and customer sentiments from their unstructured data. Again, that enabled them to kind of look for this voice of the customer information. Secondly, Teradata provided the database and analytics related software and services that were used by Travelocity to produce a data warehouse from its structured data. And that structured data often came from its Siebel CRM instance and then some other sources as well. And that ultimately, those Teradata tools then formed the basis of the data lake that included the structure and unstructured data that Travelocity is used to kind of keep ahead of the competition. And then lastly, SAP Business Objects are a business intelligence suite that Travelocity used to kind of turn all of that data into actionable information, both through transformation and then through the visualization of its data. All right, so by using this application of business intelligence, how did Travelocity benefit? Well, as one of the oldest online travel brands, Travelocity had a ton of advantage from that mountain of structure and unstructured data. And it applied that data and applied BI in order to do a few key things. First, to drive sales conversions. Remember, the way that you're doing business with Travelocity has to do with going ultimately to the Travelocity.com website, which aggregates flights and hotels and cars from a variety of sources, right? So its ability to understand the purchase funnel from the time that someone performs a search or enters Travelocity.com into its URL bar enabled Travelocity to optimize that purchase funnel and then improve their conversion rate. So if you had a conversion rate of 1%, the idea that you get to 2% means that you essentially doubled your business. Number 2, Travelocity employed BI in order to drive kind of predictive analytics and make purchase recommendations to customers based on the behavior of other customers with similar traits, right? So this is, your sort of classic market basket analysis. Someone comes to book a flight from Denver to Las Vegas around Christmas. It's a pretty good bet that they're going to get a hotel. They'll need a hotel. Maybe they'll need a car. And Travelocity can improve the degree of their recommendations or improve the quality of those recommendations based on the behavior of customers with searches that were similar. And then lastly, BI enabled Expedia to extend its marketing reach, right? So to use predictive analytics and a large amount of unstructured data to answer natural language requests. Again, those kind of requests come in through Google Assistants, Apple Assistants, Alexa, and the idea then is that someone doesn't have to perform a Google search through google.com or go to the Travelocity website in order to get results from Travelocity or Expedia. So if you ask Siri for travel recommendations, right now you will see results that come from Expedia. All right, and as far as challenges are concerned, Travelocity had a few challenges that sort of popped up later in its life that were really the result of shifting consumer habits and marketing forces that impacted the quality of its BI and its ability to keep its BI up to date. So number one, again in 1995, it wasn't really very hard. It was very, very difficult to gain access to Saber's GDS. Travelocity was created in order to provide access to a GDS. So the competition was pretty slim, but today, any number of travel companies or startups can gain access to GDS data from Sabre or from another source. And in fact, Google actually purchased a GDS in order to power its own travel search engine. Uh, so there's sort of a more competitive playing field, and that means that Travelocity isn't this sort of go-to destination or one of two go-to destinations for travel bookings that it was in the late 90s and early 2000s. Number two, airlines often now want to do business directly with a consumer, so they'll offer price breaks to customers who book through their owned and operated websites and apps, and that limits the amount of first-party data that Travelocity and other OTAs can gather. And then lastly, Google was really the top of the Travelocity funnel for many years, and really sort of formed the basis of most of the entryway to Travelocity.com for any customers who didn't type the website in directly. But now Google is a competitor, and that's yet another blocker for customers to get to Travelocity in the first place. All of this adds up to, all these different market force adjustments and consumer behavior adjustments add up to inhibiting Travelocity to gather first-party data. And sooner or later, the predictive intelligence that it's cobbled together from years of sort of watching consumer habits does in fact become outdated. So that data gets stale, and you're less good at providing good market basket analysis and recommendations. All right, so that really leads into the two discussion questions. First of all, again, Travelocity was one of only two main OTA players in the late 90s and the early 2000s. So how could, hindsight being 2020, the company have used that enormous data that it gathered as part of its first mover advantage in order to avoid its decline, right? Eventually, it declined to the point where it was purchased by Expedia, and it wasn't competitive ultimately, or as competitive as its shareholders expected it to be in the OTA space. So how could it have used that data in order to fend off some of its competitors as other competitors gained access to the GDA data that forms the basis of an OTA? And number two, given that we do know Travelocity's ultimate fate, is that rich BI ecosystem that it developed really even an advantage today? It was an advantage at the time in 2007 and 2010, but is that actually an advantage today, or is it just a necessity? Are firms really then just sort of unsustainable without the ability to generate and store and then sort of mine data in order to drive business results? Is sort of BI just a cost of doing business or a given today? Okay, so those were the discussion questions, and that was my presentation on Travelocity.com. I've listed my references on this slide, so anyone who's interested in the rise and fall of Travelocity can do a little digging of their own. Again, I'm Forrest Stewart, and thank you very much.